in life.
Yeah, the discussion that we were having about avocado oil is pretty interesting. I hope everybody's buckled in for an exciting session of Heroes of Humility. The thing about avocado oil is that it burns at a higher temperature than most others. So it's good to cook with, because when you start to burn your oils, you're basically ingesting carcinogens and things that might lead to bigger problems in your body. So you want to get an oil, usually above 340 is where you're cooking. And so the only one that can handle that is pretty much avocado oil. So you got to be careful, and it's got to be unrefined, virgin, kind of like beige.
Wow.
And by the way, we're very happy to have Beige in the studio with us.
I'm
again.
the only virgin with 4 kids, huh? Wow, that's crazy.
Well, he's bragging
Extra
now.
virgin.
Well, maybe maybe you need to be more virgin. You know, and that's what I understand leads us into something you didn't want to talk about.
Oh, geez, here we go.
He's going to get snipped tomorrow, guys.
Ugh.
And we're happy to have Beige back. This is the second recording with
Trying
us,
to
episode
not
28.
think about that, but appreciate it.
But see, the thing is, you've been mentioning it a lot, and I think it's good to over talk about it, because then it brings you past, like, it makes you so comfortable with it. You're like, hey, bring the scissors on. Let's do this. Right?
Bring the rusty scalpel on. Give me some tetanus.
His
Here.
garage is open.
My balls.
Yeah, and there's other guys in the room that have had that done. I haven't, but
Before I got mine done, everyone just gave me horror stories that I got.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
I didn't give you horror stories.
Well, you said you had some pain during the procedure, which, you know.
I explained that the local anesthesia
he had a
doesn't
rare
doesn't
situation.
Right. He's got a rare
anesthesia doesn't work
situation.
on him. His ego powers. are too
it does
strong.
like halfway.
Your powers aren't that
Yeah.
strong. It'll work just fine on you. It's going to put you out.
I'm not
put you out.
I'm not a mutant.
Yeah, you're not a mutant. Well, let's do our
true.
intro. So, Heroes of Humility, again, a show about socially aberrant conduct, but things that only we can laugh at. We don't get too serious, and if we do, we can't help it because our intellectual capacity brings us there sometimes, where we're just trying to give people little insights, nuggets into how maybe they can navigate social human behavioral challenges. And so Beige is back. We have Red here again.
Hey, guys.
Thanks. And then 11 in full effect as well in the comfy recliner. And Pierce here. You hear me talk too much sometimes. I apologize for that. So what we started doing in the last one is we have this exercise we do at the end where it's not a physical exercise, but it does exercise our brains, because we come up with a hypothetical scenario. And last time we came up with scenarios from our own personal lives. And then we pose that to another hoe in the room, and they have to explain how they would navigate the similar situation. How would they survive it? And it was interesting. I mean, it got zesty. And so we're going to do that towards the end. But this topic on this one, after we talk about something that we might have observed awkward in the ecosystem of human behavior, we're going to get into our topic of music. Music is obviously tied into the social fabric of our lives, and I think we could do the topic justice. In particular, we've noticed a de-evolution in music, and I can't think of a better way to say it. Music that has kind of become just noises.
Heroes
Of
Humility, 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 humility. This is not a charade. This is real. These words you are about to hear are coming from real humans on a mission to save the human race from itself. Buckle up while these delusional heroes of humility, aka hoes, attempt to right the wrongs in everyday human behavior. I had something that leads us into our music topic happen to me. You know, I like to wear my old classic 80s bands shirts, or, you know, I have a lot of Van Halen shirts and stuff. And I went to Trader Joe's to get my macadamia nuts and my coconut oil. The guy that was checking me out said, "Oh, you're letting the lead out, right?" And he was looking at my shirt, and he was a younger kid. I don't know if you noticed, but it's become very in vogue for people, you know, younger kids, to be wearing these T-shirts.
Oh, I've
bands,
seen it.
right?
I've seen it.
Yeah.
Even buddies from work who have kids, they'll bring them to the office or something like that, and they're wearing like concert shirts from like the 80s. And
Right.
Well,
it makes me wonder, like, is it just a fashion statement, or are they actually listening to the music?
Mm-hmm.
well, like my wife just took my oldest daughter to the Metallica concert here in town, 2 nights, both nights. And so she ended up getting concert t-shirts. But that's something I try to do as a dad, is like expose my kids to what I think is good music from back in the day. And like maybe something that a lot of the kids they go to school with don't listen to.
And you
know?
put a set of headphones on your daughter and you say, hey, listen to this Holier Than Thou song by Metallica. It's going to square you away.
Yeah, pretty much.
So,
you know,
yeah, that's interesting.
but I mean,
it tells a lot about.
But I mean, she actually enjoys the music. It's not like I'm forcing it on her, you know, which is kind of cool. So,
Enter Sandman.
yeah, I mean, it's kind of like oldies for them. It's funny to us because we
That's
grew up with
crazy.
it, but it's kind of like oldies for these kids.
My
nowadays.
kids are calling like 90s stuff classic rock. I'm like, what the?
Yeah.
No, that is hard to hear.
It
It's
is.
hard to hear that.
These
What are
these
you
shirts
talking about?
you can go in and get them like at Target or whatever, and some of those shirts were hard to get. I got a Van Halen shirt at the For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge concert in the mid 90s. I was in the audience with 3 of my buddies. God bless them. They'll hear this and they'll remember. But they have a slight difference in recollection of what occurred. And what I saw is that the light shined out on the audience. And by the way, if you can hear that in the background, that's Beauty messing with the Roomba. And that Roomba requires so much attention that it has to be cleaned. Yeah, that's the Roomba. So please,
Actually, probably easier just to use a regular vacuum.
it is,
Much
dude.
more-
It is. You have to do surgery every week to make sure the Roomba's ready for its next battle. So anyway, I'm sitting in the audience. I'm standing. A beam goes out, and Sammy Hagar goes like this. Now, being a frosty and ready to go Van Halen fan, I knew what they were waiting for before they did their next number. They were waiting for the Van Halen symbol. And I got my hands up. And I got them up like this, dude. And that beam of light, it came across a sea of simpletons. I love them because they're all Van Halen songs, but they didn't get their hands up in time. I got my hands up in time, and Sammy Hagar looked at my Van Halen symbol with my hands, and I looked at him, and he was like, let's do this, right? And I'll never
That's pretty
ever
sweet, dude. That's
forget
pretty
it.
sweet.
I'll never forget it. And then they started up, and I want to say I think it was Pound Cake. Man, I love that song. And you can use the
I love
Goog.
pound cake.
Yeah, that's almost ruined the story, but no, I'm just kidding. No, I do like Pound Cake too. But so the song started, and then it was like a wave of Van Halen symbols that went up in people's hands. And I told my buddy, did you see that? Did you see that? And they're like, what? And to this day, they argue with me, but I had a magic moment with Sammy Hagar, and I'll never forget it. I saw a GIF the other day. It said, just think, if you ever have a bad day, remember this. You were lucky enough to live out of all the people in the world and as long as the earth and the time has existed, and even rock bands, you were lucky enough to live and listen during the time that Van Halen was really Van Halen. How cool is that if you think about it? So whenever you have a bad day, just remember you were lucky enough to. So I was wearing my Van Halen shirt at Trader Joe's, and this guy said, hey, I see you're letting the lead out. And I was like, what does he mean letting the lead out? But he was trying to, they're very outgoing at Trader Joe's. I think that's one of the requisite for their employees there. And what I realized is he was making a comment that I was wearing like a Led Zeppelin shirt because he doesn't know. Yeah, he doesn't know. They wear the shirts. They want to wear the shirts, like the Metallica shirts and, the Pantera shirts and the Guns N' Roses and all this, but they may not really know the songs. They maybe never even listened to the album. I was listening to that album on auto reverse. They don't even know what auto reverse is.
Well,
right?
For them, it's just a fashion thing.
Yeah.
It's not like the sub, like, look at me, I'm cool. I got a Guns N' Roses shirt. Name a Guns N' Roses song, and maybe they'll name 1 or 2, but they're not avid fans.
You'll like this, Pierce. My boy, Evan, and Evan, Van Halen's like his favorite. Right?
Nice.
And he
I love
shreds
your
on the
kids,
guitar, and he plays Van Halen and like all these different songs.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, that's right. He plays the guitar. That's pretty cool, man. I looked at the guy, and I didn't want to make him feel bad, but gosh, I'm trying to remember what I said. I actually had to write it down here. Let me look, because I was telling my significant other, and she said, you should probably write that down. It was the nicest way I could think to correct him without making him feel bad, you know? If we could just have a station break while I look for this.
Well, I'll I know those concert shirts that people buy. First of all, at the concerts, they're like ridiculously expensive. They're like $50, $60 for a friggin' t-shirt. But
go get one at Walmart.
Yeah, but it doesn't have the tour dates on the back, and so you didn't get it at the concert. You know, I guess that's why you're paying the money. But people sell them; they resell them, and they're hella expensive on the resale market too. Sometimes, I mean, you're talking maybe double some of these shirts. Now, me personally, I don't know why you'd want a shirt for a tour you didn't go to.
Yeah, if you see some, 16-year-old kid wearing a shirt from 1989 tour, obviously they were there.
Exactly. Or even an adult, and they'd say, oh, like the Metallica tour or something like that, and it's like, then somebody wants to say, oh man, how was that show? It was awesome. And then if you didn't go, you'd be like, I didn't go. I don't know.
Found this at Goodwill.
I just bought the shirt.
It's like, why are you wearing the shirt?
Those vintage shirts, they are going for a pretty penny, man. All over the place. eBay. I think I saw them on, there's another Etsy, and it's crazy. But I told the kid, I said, shoot, what did I say? I got to look it up again.
Here we go.
What a dum-dum.
I feel like this is going to be a letdown. The buildup is so
There's
much.
been way too much hype now.
There's been way too much hype about what you said to this kid. It's going to
I said, yeah, they're all right, but they're no Van Halen. And then I said, this is a Van Halen shirt. So he kind of felt bad, and I was like, I'm sorry,
really made
bud.
him feel bad. Dude.
I know, I didn't want to, but he's like, and I think I didn't try to explain it. I don't know that he still maybe didn't get it, but
you haven't seen him anymore at Sprouts.
Yeah, I've been
fired
avoiding
him.
him.
I think they fired him.
I called managers. I told them, asked them if they could let him go.
You can't be disappointing customers like that.
So anyway, it was an introduction into this transition into our topic for today. It proves something that we're going to get into, I think, which is it's kind of like Saturday Night Live, right? People say, oh, this particular time in Saturday Night Live was the best. Well, it's likely because that was a time that was very impressionable during your youth when it was really meant something to you. You connected with it. And I think there's an argument to be made that music is like that. Well, you're still keeping that classic 80s rock or 90s or whatever in the rotation because that was a significant time for you. It's like latched onto you. But it goes beyond that because people are wearing shirts. They're still listening to it. There's a whole YouTube phenomena where kids will record themselves listening to the Bee Gees or Survivor play, one of their classics for the very first time. They've never heard it, and they're trying to film or capture their reaction to it. And some of these go viral.
I've seen those YouTube videos where people are like listening to a certain song for the first time, and they get their reaction of like what the reaction is.
A lot of these songs are coming from the same time period, and it's the same time period that's showing up on the T-shirts, and that people are talking about, and that people are kind of proud to be playing at level 10 while they're driving by.
Well, on that topic, I think people get stuck into like, well, I like this music. This is what I listen to, and they don't expand their horizons to other things that they might enjoy as well.
That's true too.
I've seen that. That's why, like with my kids, I try to expose them to as much different types of music as I can. Like I like hard rock. Like I grew up on punk and hard rock. I like bands like the Deftones. I don't know, just like
B-52s. Kind of a big...
No, but I mean, I would
effects.
listen to like, I
use for a name.
Yeah, I would listen to like bands kind of in that same genre, Tool or Korn, and that's what I grew up in my formative years, like 18 to 22 years old. That's what I listened to all the time. But I will still listen to a crap load of like 80s new wave too.
Yeah,
like I love 80s new
wave.
wave. I'll listen to that. I'll listen to like hip hop too. I like a lot of hip hop.
Did you like
Eminem and NF and like some of those guys that probably you never even heard of? You probably heard of Eminem, but like there's other guys out there. Like I think I've sent you a bunch of music before in text and stuff, like stuff that I'm just discovering.
Yeah,
and that's what's
kind of blow my mind sometimes.
Yeah,
You've heard NF. It's on Rocket League.
Yeah,
and that's what's so cool about where we exist now in music, right? Because like we were all kids in the 80s, pretty much, right? So how did you discover new music in the 80s?
The radio.
Or maybe MTV, maybe. Now, like, dude, you go on YouTube, you go on Amazon
MTV.
Music.
Yeah, MTV big time.
Yeah. But you go on Amazon Music now and they're like, oh, you like this? Well, you might like this, you know? And then you listen to that and you're like, damn, that's badass. And I've discovered a lot of music that I like personally on commercials, believe it or not. You'll be watching a commercial and you're like, damn, that's a cool song. What is that? And you Shazam it or something. There's just so many ways to discover music now compared to how it was when we were kids.
Yeah.
I'm open to new music, but when you know what you like and you hear it and within the first 2 seconds you enjoy it, and it seemed like that was on the radio and coming out in the top 40 every day of every week and every year, and it doesn't seem like that to me anymore. Now, I've tuned in. I don't know if this is going to be the hipster list, but there's Dua Lipa and Doja Cat and some of these goofballs. I liked some of that, but then they're hit or miss because they're sampling stuff. Dua Lipa just got her pee-pee spanked because she was using samples from other songs. They'll play it and it sounds just like it. It's more like a Milli Vanilli thing to me, or like Vanilla Ice. He got some static about this, the sampling and using of other people's music. I just think that there's a point they've reached of diminishing returns in creativity, and the stuff coming out, man, it's not like it was. Like I said, it seems like every week, every year, every month, there were like hit after hit.
And I will tell you that there's a lot of bands now, and one of the recent trends is you have new artists now, new bands that sound like 80s new wave.
Yeah.
Which is really cool to me. Like I shared a bunch of videos with you.
What was the name of that group? Do you remember?
It was Gunship is their name. And like they have, I mean, if you listen to them and you didn't know, it's like 80s new wave, you know, and even like their videos on YouTube, clips from like Miami Vice and like all this 80s nostalgia stuff. And it's just like they're a modern band. And I think they're from like England or something, you know, and like you'd have no idea. But there's so many examples of that. I think even The Weeknd, some of his stuff you listen to and you're like, damn, this sounds like an 80s song. Yeah. It sounds like Michael Jackson from the 80s, you know?
No, but cool. I think you're right. And you hit something on the head there is that when we were young, you pretty much only had two ways to listen to music. Like you said, usually impressionable was MTV. You watch these music videos because there was such a culture, and it was so... You guys probably can remember watching Thriller on MTV and how you would try to do the dances. It was just like everything stopped when a certain music video came out. I remember like Too Hot for Teacher. Like I can still...
Like there was hype surrounding it.
Yeah. And or like you listen to the radio. There wasn't all the different venues in different ways, because like you're just saying, like some of the music you're discovering, you have to go out and look for it, whether it's online or you heard it on a commercial, because you're like, I'm not hearing that on the radio I'm listening to because it's not popular music. Because I like you just said, one of the things I'm finding out, I'm definitely old school. I used to have the little cassette case Logic full of cassette tapes, and then when you go to CDs, I had the booklets upon booklets of CDs. And now...
Well, like you're an old school like hip-hop guy, like 90s hip-hop, stuff like that, right?
Well, I can say 80s, 90s. I mean, I go from like Sublime to Metallica to Megadeth to... Even on my mom's side, listen to mariachi music. I can even listen to that stuff, but it's not new stuff. It's all old stuff from back then.
Right.
And then even EDM, I've liked some of the stuff that was come out even recently. But you have different venues, and everybody streams now. Like you can't go to a store, like happen to be in a grocery store or like a store and walk by the CD because you're like, oh, cool, I see the poster for it. It's like if you're into music, you have to kind of go out there and discover it. But I will say now on YouTube, there's more ways for somebody like people like us to, if we were a garage band, we can now easily just throw it up on YouTube and other people could sample it. Where back in our day, you had to put yourself out there and play in bands to get even notice, any type of recognition.
But there's something missing from that, because I always find the juxtaposition of beauty and simplicity, right? So when we were kids, if you liked a girl, what would you do? You'd make a mixtape, right? You do that. You remember the mixtapes and stuff. You make a mixtape and give it to this girl. Dude. Like, that was cool. You know, like now we don't have that. Now, like, that was something that, like, yeah, it was cumbersome to do that, and you got to do that and probably spend a night or two making this tape. But that was cool to be able to do that. You know, now, like, how do you send a girl you like music? Like you just share, like, hey, here. I know, but, YouTube but you know how like lame that is, though, compared to like giving a girl a mixtape. Like in my impression, or in my view, that's lame.
Well, because you know that you spent time. That took time. It wasn't just like I'm texting her to forwarding a link from a YouTube site that took you a whopping 2 minutes.
Exactly.
Where the mixtape, it took you probably at least a couple
hours.
And
that's what, like, people that are younger than us, they don't really get that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, there's something lost in society when we start going away. Like, everybody needs everything instant access now. Yeah. And, like, there's beauty in working for stuff, in simplicity. And we're just losing that in society completely, you know, and music is an example of it.
Well, like, that's kind of one of the points that I was getting to was now some of these newer bands that are coming out are only releasing streaming songs. You couldn't go buy a CD or some sort of media that you'd hold in your hand.
The only thing they'll release is maybe a record because it's cool and hip, like to have stuff on vinyl, you know. They'll release a vinyl record because somebody wants to have a cool little record player in their house somewhere or something.
Absolutely. I just find that that's kind of the newer thing where people are having to pay subscriptions to have access to their own music library. That's a big deal that I've always kind of faced because you're like, what do you do with all the thousands of CDs that you purchased when you were young?
Trash. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I still got them in a folder somewhere.
And the same thing with like DVDs are becoming the same way. You know, movies are the same way. They're all digital. They're all downloadable. In my house, I have 2 huge cases full of DVDs. I've collected over the year, and like I never watch them like that. Like if I want to watch one of those movies, I'm gonna find it on TV somewhere, and if not, I'll pay $2 to download it. You know,
no, you guys remember? We just dealt with this with a family member. We were cleaning out a storage shed. You guys remember like the Disney movies back then on VHS? Like to get one that was expensive.
They only released like once a year.
Yeah, and you're like it had the little plastic cover. Mm-hmm. Well, this person that we were helping to move had a whole like milk crate full of these Disney style VHS tapes. I just remember like how sought after they were to have. And the sad part is we go to try to donate it to like a local Goodwill, and they don't even accept VHS tapes because it's just
nobody has a
VCR to play that stuff. And it was like something that you had such a high priority.
Yeah.
And I think the same with like CDs and stuff. I found a couple like old CDs that I remember that. I can't find that CD. I can go to eBay now. And people, because they are donating their CDs, they're selling CDs from bands from the 80s and 90s, really low end, $5, including shipping. You can get it sent to your house.
Dude, I remember as a kid, we had a grocery store about a mile from my house. And that was back in the day in the 80s or whatever, where like kids would walk places by themselves, you know? I was like 12 year. I know. I was 12 years old and I would just walk to the grocery store. I think my mom gave me some money or whatever, and I was so excited because I bought the. You remember the movie Above the Rim, the basketball movie?
Yes, yeah.
That soundtrack was like an awesome soundtrack. It had like Regulators on it, and like all these cool rap songs, and like I was so happy to be able to go into this place and buy this tape and then bring it home and put it in the boombox and play it. You know, like. That's just, like I said, it's cool to look forward to stuff like that, to like work for it, you know?
I'm trying to think about that in modern times now. If there's a great movie that comes out, do they even sell soundtracks? Because I agree with you. I remember back in the day when there was a hot movie.
You can find them on like Spotify and
Can
stuff.
you? Oh, okay. Because that was one thing that used to be the big thing back when some big movie would come out, and it was so important, the music that they picked, that everybody was going out to go get the soundtrack.
Right. And like, I don't know how it is with you guys if you have older siblings, but with me, a big influence in my musical taste was my older brother. In the 90s and stuff, he was into rap, and I don't know if you guys know a lot about, he was into like Redman and all these people that were around before people even knew him. He was always on the cutting edge. I thought he was so cool because he knew about all this stuff that wasn't mainstream, and he knew about a lot of these guys that were kind of underground. And so then I started listening to him, and I felt cool because I knew who this person was, and they were good, and you didn't know who they were. You know what I mean?
So, you know what? I think that Beige just hit on something that is a reason why there has been a change a little bit in music. There was only a few options, a few different categories, and people identified with it, not just because they liked it, but it also influenced probably a bit of how they dressed. It was who they hung out with.
It's part of culture.
Yeah, it was a part of your identity. And that was, I think, unless I'm wrong, and I'd like to hear Levin's take on this because he's got kids and you do too, Beige, but I don't know that kids are still identifying with their music like that, are they?
Oh, yeah, I think you're right. I get what you're saying. I mean, as far as what you're saying is like, I remember being back in high school and you would get all the kids that dress punk. You knew right away it was like, those are the kids that like punk music.
Yeah.
Or even way back when my sister was in, we used to call them the stoners. Oh, there's the stoners. They got the long hair. They're the headbangers.
Yeah. Like they listen to Jane's Addiction or they listen to like Rancid or these bands. Like, cause that's the way
it's not really like that anymore, but you still have a few factions.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed too. At schools, everybody just seems to be normal.
Like what used to be the goth group is now emo. So they'll be like, oh, they're emo types.
But when we were kids, there was definitely, like you said, factions.
There was.
You are the goth kids. You are the stoners. You are the little gangsters. You know what I mean? Like, so because of that, like, I know what you listen to. I know what you're into. That's like a subculture. You know what I mean? And now being around kids, like dropping my kid off at high school and stuff, and seeing these kids around, it just seems like everybody's like quote unquote normal now. Yeah. Like very few kids have like a distinct subculture that they identify with, like we did when we were kids. You know,
I think the one that I've been my wife and I kind of noticed was the newer one seems to be the anime stuff, where kids are dressing to look kind of like the Japanese cartoons, where they'll have kind of the odd looking dyed hair or backpacks with the furry little animals and stuff like that. But other than that, like I agree with you. Like I've gone to a high school for a function for a friend, and you kind of look around like, man, what do the kids look like nowadays? And you're right, most of them, you couldn't walk around and
all the guys have the same hair. They wear the same clothes.
Well,
they're all just carbon copies.
Now
like, what is going on here?
Now all the high school boys are all wearing like mullets now. You know, like
I want to hear.
Are coming back
I kind of want to hear what we all identified with. Here's what I would say is. Okay, let's start with Red. I'm just looking at Red. What do you think he identified as, or how do you think he dressed in what music?
He was a gearhead.
A gearhead? Okay. Well, I know he was into vehicles.
Let's say even before gearhead.
Okay,
this would be earlier.
With Red, I think he was kind of like a hip hop kid back in the day.
He was a b-boy. He was out there breakdancing.
Okay, now let's see. What year did you graduate high school?
97.
Okay, let me think. Okay, now there was a thing during, and I was like just a little bit before that was big, and I thought I was the ambassador of this at my school because it wasn't everybody else who listened to this just called them rappers or R&B singers, and I knew what they were really called. They were bringing New Jack Swing. New Jack Swing. A New Jack Swing.
That was a Pierceism right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, New Jack Swing was like Jodeci, Boys to Men. Even for a while, you might
like
forget,
the panty droppers, huh?
You might even forget
some R. Kelly. Yeah, that'll boy.
Genuine.
You might forget for a second, but there was a small, brief time and period before he deflowered Whitney Houston that Bobby Brown owned.
Oh, Bobby Brown was fantastic.
And Don't Be Cruel and stuff like that. Those were grooves, and they'd be played.
You had an earring, didn't you, Red?
Oh no! You know what? Funny? No, I did not. I'll tell you.
I bet you like some New Jack Swing though.
Of course, I mean, because I had some friends that had some older siblings, and they would constantly they were big into being DJs or trying to be wannabe DJs. Okay. So of course, like back then was rap and stuff like that. That was real popular, but you'd mix it in with some of them like Phil Collins or the Police. You'd mix in like an old school song that everybody like Roxanne,
like a sample
into a song, and it was like mixing it in. So I was a fan of, like, a lot of our friends were DJs, to listen to live music but mix it to make it a unique experience because it was like for a house party. But I mean, as far as like what I dress like, I probably dressed kind of like what I dress like now, which is kind of funny. More like surfer shirts, t-shirts, and like back then it was really a thing to tuck your shirt in and have a nice belt and like Doc Martens and nice boots and stuff like that. So I don't know if you would have saw me in my high school years, you could have, oh, that guy listens to this. I actually listened to like a lot of what I would have considered classic rock back then, the Led Zeppelin and Van Halen. I wouldn't say necessarily Van Halen, but the period of, because when I was going to high school, Van Halen was still actively playing, but some of the older stuff that they.
What was the first like song, Red, that you remember hearing and thinking, this is music, like that moved you and thought, this is almost says everything about what I stand for and what I like? Was there ever a song like that like a Sir Mix-a-Lot.
Oh, I remember
something like that.
I remember driving my dad crazy to my posse's on Broadway, because the way that the vehicle that we had at the time, it wasn't no aftermarket system, but it really made the speakers sound bass. Yeah, and I was like, oh man, that just sounded so good.
Rattle.
Because we grew up in the era of the big, huge subwoofers. Like if you would drive down a neighborhood and your house would shake from somebody driving by with like 212s in their trunk.
I had 212s.
Yeah, so exactly.
Damn.
I had a 2-door Tahoe with 212s, and I got in trouble at the mall for rattling everybody's windows. A cop came up to me and was like, "You need to turn that down, son." Okay, yes sir, turn it down. But bass and shaking the whole house and everything was definitely.
That was also the era when your radio would get stolen out of your car all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, you had to have the quick detach. Yeah, the detachable face.
Yeah.
What kind of what's
before that? You could pull the whole radio out.
Yeah, exactly.
People carried it around like a purse.
They carried it around and throw it in their backpack or whatever.
What was Beige's? Do you think?
Oh well, I have to cheat because I know a little bit about Beige. I definitely know he was a punk guy.
Okay.
Punk.
Yeah.
I mean, I went through my stages. Like I said, my brother is a big hip hop dude.
I went through punk as well.
Yeah, my brother was a big hip hop fan ever since he was young, and so I was really into hip hop too. And I even dressed that way when I was a kid too. Like Cross Colors and all those brands back in the day. Like that's what I would wear because that's what I was kind of into because of my brother mainly. And I've kept with that. I do like a lot of hip hop still, but I like. Then I would say after I graduated from high school, I really got into bands again like Deftones and even like some more punk bands per se. Korn. I listened to Marilyn Manson for a while just because he was so out there and outlandish and whatever.
He's got some good stuff.
Yeah, he's got some decent stuff. But I have a very eclectic taste in music. I like almost everything. Yeah. You know what I mean?
That's good, man.
Like
you're well rounded.
Yeah,
man.
like I try and I take pride in, hey, out of my group of friends or whatever, I discovered this band first. And I'm like, hey dude, you gotta listen to this. And then they blow up and they become something big. An example I can think of was before, like when I was like 18 or 19, I again got like a soundtrack or something for some movie, and there was a Linkin Park song on there, and nobody knew who Linkin Park was then. And I listened to that, I'm like, damn, these guys are freaking amazing, dude.
You discovered Linkin Park?
Well, no, I didn't discover them, but amongst my group of friends, I did,
right? Because
nobody had heard of them, and I said, dude, you got to listen to this song. These guys are amazing. All of a sudden, they blow up and they become one of the biggest bands in the world. So like,
see,
I could be a talent scout. You know what I mean? And if I can turn somebody on to music and they can like that music, I feel like, because to me, whenever I feel a certain way, what do? What's one of the first things you do when you feel a certain way? You listen to music, right?
Yeah.
So that's a huge part of my life is listening to music. That gets me through tough times, through good times. I like that if I'm able to turn somebody on to music and it's able to help them.
I think there's something else with Beige. I'll say, not to profile you too hard in front of the audience, but
do it.
I could see you. I also had some buddies that liked having something that only they kind of knew about. And I know for a while the Smiths were like that. There were some people that just felt like the Smiths, I get them and nobody else knows them like I do. And that's kind of like a thing too, I think, with music, because some people, I didn't have that as much, but I definitely had a blend between hair bands, rock, 80s rock, and New Jack Swing stuff. I was definitely, those were my go-tos. That were definitely my rotation.
But if you like a band and other people like that band, there's that kinship there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's, especially if it's a smaller band or a niche band, like say the Smiths is what you referenced. If there's other people that are Smiths fans, you're like, all right, you're cool. You can hang out. You got stuff in common. And that's why I share the Gunship stuff with you, because I know that was kind of up your alley. That was
that was good.
New wave type sounding stuff. It had a lot of 80s imagery in it. And stuff
it also
like that.
shows a thing is that Beige is a student of human behavior, and he gets who pierces. It means that he knows me. Like he sent me something I would enjoy, Yeah. And I think I sent you some Oblivion stuff back when she would. Do you remember that girl I sent you? And she did this weird kind of synth stuff. It was just...
you sent me some weird video with some Russian singer.
It was a girl.
Yeah, I got that one too.
What the hell is this?
I don't... Yeah, I said,
Grimes,
what the hell is this too?
Grimes. Her name's and Grimes is the girl that went out with...
it
went
was
out with a bang?
It was some weird stuff, dude.
Grimes is pretty goofy. Okay. She went out with the Tesla guy.
Elon Musk. He
went out with Grimes for a while, and she was she had some stuff I liked for like a second.
So like I'm into like Empire of the Sun is another big band that I like. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but they do a lot of,
I think so.
like it's crazy because a lot of hip hop artists will do Empire of the Sun samples on their songs.
Yeah.
You know, which is kind of cool because you have people from different genres kind of paying respect. That's how I view when people sample other people's music. It's like a respectful thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm on you know what? I'm on a Survivor kick right now. And I don't know if everybody's heard this, but if you hear the song, you'll probably be like, oh yeah, they had some classic. They did some of the rock soundtrack for Rockies.
Eye of the Tiger.
But before that, they had some too. And you'll hear that and you'll be like, that's music. Good stuff. Straight from the heart, kind of a ballad, but they also had the cool guitar. He got up on stage. He had a pretty good presence. That music's good. So I'm going to kick that with that right now. I've always got, Def Leppard and AC/DC, Guns N' Roses, Van Halen in my...
And what you said before about music, I don't think the music's bad now. I think you just have to search for it more. Because what you're hearing on the radio is all the same crap.
It's a lot of sampling,
it's like
it's auto-tune.
Yeah, it's auto-tune or it's just whatever's poppy and catchy. Like if you like music, you got to look for it a little bit.
In a couple of years, those artists, unfortunately, I hate to say it sounds like elitist, but you're just not going to hear about them again. And it's no slam against anybody or anything, but do you know how long people have been wearing Metallica shirts and Van Halen, and this keeps happening over. Van Halen was before my time, but they were during my time, and so it would carry it on.
I think people will always wear Van Halen shirts. Like it's not you ever see people.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you ever see people wearing '50s Beatles, like the Beatles shirts? Like you don't see that. Like you're just gonna
just
a little bit,
like you said right there. You think of music genres, it goes. You know what '50s music sounds like, '60s, '70s, '80s, '90s. Even 2000s.
We probably do.
Right.
But not maybe the younger.
It's lost after that. Everything kind of just sounds
sounds the same.
Right.
Yeah, there's no distinction like
there's no distinction.
Yeah.
It's becoming a nondescript because there's especially so many options and everything's just kind of...
Well, I don't know if you guys remember back in your 20s how big dance clubs were such a thing. There was multiple dance clubs. Now you're finding less and less dance clubs and more, I will say I've noticed, a lot more microbrew pubs with a live band.
And they all play 90s music when they don't have 90s
covers.
bands. Yeah. They do, dude.
They have because I remember when I was young, there was this one bar in kind of the bar area and they had a Cure cover band. A lot of the people were maybe even younger than me. I'm like thinking, these guys don't even know this music. But everybody loved it. The guy would just play not just Cure stuff, but a lot of stuff from that era. People really liked it. So it kind of makes you wonder, is the current music dying, the genre, like back another 20 years from now? Are we going to look back and go, oh, yeah, what's music like from 2020 era? And people are going to go, oh, it was garbage?
No, it'll come back around.
And I always feel like when people are exposed to like 80s and 90s music, they're like, this is awesome. Most people are like, this music was great. Even today, kids today are like, yeah, this was great. Like you hear a lot of kids, damn, I wish I would have grown up in that time because that music was awesome.
Because I went to lunch with a couple of guys from work, get in my car, and I had the radio on from the previous time I was driving. And it was happened to be a current, like more top 40 song that was playing. And everybody kind of looked at each other like, it was this auto-tune song. And right away, it wasn't even me because I know I've griped about some of the newer artists. You can't tell the difference between each other because they auto-tune, so their voice does not have a distinct... So you can tell, oh yeah, this is this band or this is that band. And everybody had the same idea of, yeah, how can you... And they had young kids. How can you listen to this new stuff? There's not even like a beat. It's just somebody talking in auto-tune, and there is a sound coming out, but...
There's not a melody or a rhythm.
Yeah, like, because I can think back to even my wedding where I had older people that weren't part of, like, say, the 80s and 90s music growing up with it. But when they heard the song, it made them dance. Like, they didn't grow up with that genre of music, but they still wanted to dance to it. Where now, like, the music that's coming out, you can't really dance like you would.
Right.
I mean, because think about it now, like you can go to a wedding now and they still play some of the Cupid Shuffle, the Macarena song, stuff like you don't really hear on the radio anymore. But if you go to a wedding, you guys remember the roller skating rings, like how important music was with the lights and the smoke, and you're skating around on the roller skate rings because music was important. Put the 1 foot in and the 1 foot out.
Hokey pokey.
The hokey pokey, exactly. I mean, do you guys remember?
Did you shake it all about?
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah, you did. I will bring up one thing from high school that I thought our high school was really unique. We actually had square dancing as part of PE. Freshman PE, you had to take.
I did when I was in middle school. They did that one.
Elementary school, yeah, I remember that.
It was like everybody had to take it.
You never had to do that, Beige?
Everyone had to do it.
Yeah, you had to dance.
I think we did.
Really weird because I was just talking about this with my wife this past weekend.
Really?
Yeah, like yesterday or the day before, we were talking about with some other people.
They don't do that anymore, do they?
No,
I don't think so.
No, they don't. Because my coach,
was like,
the PE coach, was the one calling out the turn.
Yeah, she was saying that she's from such a rural place that they did square dancing and I was like, oh shit! I was like,
we even did that in the city
too. You know, it's in L.A. You know,
right? Yeah,
and you had to follow instructions, and they would.
Oh yeah, it was cool because I'll tell you what, like most of us were like, oh shoot, we're gonna have to, because usually when you'd go for PE, you got to dress out in your school district colors. Well, this you didn't dress out, but all the guys would start in the guy locker, and then the girls would start in the girl locker, and then you had the basketball court in the middle. And then the music would start playing, and that was your cue to come out. And the girls came out of their locker, and whoever you met when you made that turn to an L was your partner for that day. And then the coach would be the one calling out the square dance.
I blame it on Garth Brooks because he was so big back then that it became a thing.
Red, do you remember the first time you danced with a girl?
Not in specifics, no.
Really? It wasn't your wife or?
No.
Just JK. Okay. Beige, first time. You don't remember the first time you danced with a girl?
Sometime in school, I think, probably.
Dude, that's what a player you guys are. You don't even remember.
No, I can't remember who it was, but I can remember like the first time junior dance or junior high school dance, dancing, and just like it was a slow dance, like a two-step. And I just remember like asking my sisters, if I
and you feel like such a clown.
Yeah, I don't remember the girl, but I do remember like asking my sisters. I
didn't feel like a clown. How do you brag? But
they used to have this place.
Look at this guy.
I don't feel like a clown.
As evidenced by those videos you've uploaded to YouTube, you got some good moves.
Well, I knew what I was doing because you don't have to know anything. You just do what the music tells you.
Oh,
yeah. You do what the music tells you. Yeah, and then I remember thinking at the dance, it was an auditorium, and I thought, well,
damn, I'm good.
Nothing's going to happen unless...
Okay. Ooh,
I was just going to say...
Snap, crackle,
I'm sorry, Beige. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, we haven't heard much from 11, so what was he into as a kid? Well, let's try to guess here.
Okay. He liked some rap. I know he likes some rap stuff.
I'm going to say heavy metal.
He looks more heavy metal, but I think he's more rap.
No.
Hip-hop? No?
Look at that.
I was kind of into that.
Country.
I really like it a little bit.
Country.
Okay.
No. I hated country.
Scottish music.
Yes, I only like bagpipes. That was
bagpipes?
Bagpipes and the fucking flute thing.
Classical. Beethoven. You're a Beethoven guy.
I do like classical, though. Yeah. No, I kind of brought this up before that I grew up. I started playing guitar and stuff with my uncle and all that. And he made me start listening to like the blues and stuff. And then then through classic rock and all that stuff too. He wanted me to have this weird appreciation for music, which I do now.
Jazz.
So,
which you're probably trying to give to your kids now, right? Like,
yes, and I have, and that's why my boy Evan, the kid's like a musical genius, man. It's impressive. His school bought him a Paul Reed Smith guitar, which they go anywhere from like $2,000 to $5,000, you know. Mm-hmm. And they bought him one and a whole amp set up with pedals and all that. So they dropped like $7,000 on him, and he gets to keep it. Like it's his. It's not the school's.
Wow, that's awesome.
Nice.
So that's what he's doing now. But yeah, the first song that ever gave me goosebumps, and I was really young, was my uncle played Freebird, and it wasn't even the sing. It was the guitar at the end, and he was like, listen to dueling guitars when they were like shredding. I was like, ugh, like it got me, man. Dude, and then I got way into playing music after that.
Speaking of Leonard Skinner, the song that gets me every time I listen to it is my favorite song in the world is Simple Man.
Simple Man, yeah.
Oh, God, I love that song, man.
Yeah,
that's the best, dude.
It's timeless. Our school had, at the rec center, they would do like a dance almost every Friday night.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Co-rec. They were trying to get kids to like not be out gangbanging and doing drugs and stuff. So you could go to co-rec every Friday.
How old were you when you first went to that?
6th grade. What's that?
6th grade. Okay.
12.
Yeah, that's 11, how I think 12, about it.
11, 12.
In terms of grade. And so in 6th grade, that was the first time you danced with the...
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, to me, that was just such a thing I remember, man, because it was a big deal. Like, and then I just remember thinking, well, I've got to go over. I mean, this isn't going to happen otherwise.
Mine was the Friends. Do you want to dance with them? She's like,
yeah.
Friends would.
Yes, no, maybe.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. Maybe you just go say something. I'm just kind of like, you want to go? Sure, okay.
Because everybody until that, everybody's just standing on opposite walls and nobody's doing anything.
Oh, I remember that in junior high. All the girls on one side, the boys on the other.
Yeah. It's just something's got to happen at that point because you're like, well, I got to be here for 2 hours. Let's do this, right?
Yeah. Well, and like you mentioned, the skate parties before, like finding a girl and holding her hand and skating around, like that was a big deal back in the day. I remember, too,
I had a super awkward scenario, which would probably be suitable for Hose. It was like in the second year, I had gone to my dance. I think the first time was 7th grade, and then in 8th grade, I went and danced with this girl, and she was way more mature than me. She knew she had the moves. She knew everything she was doing, and she was wearing kind of this provocative thing with spaghetti straps. For me, for our age, it was. And we're dancing, and she was tall, and all of a sudden, I saw one of those straps was fighting to stay attached, dude. And it was one of those that was like tied, and that thing.
And then in 80s movie fashion, Pierce jumps in slow motion.
Well, I was dancing with her.
Save her
spaghetti
from blasting out in front of everybody.
She that thing started to come undone, and she didn't make a move. It was like it didn't even matter to her. I was more worried about it than her. I reached over with my right hand, and I grabbed that strap before.
Oh, man, I thought you were going to say something else.
You remember Pierce, right? This is the guy that wouldn't,
This is the guy that turned
down
involved
with the French girl, right? That wanted a threesome. And if ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't hear the last episode, you'll have a better understanding.
You didn't hear the last episode, you're missing out.
Yeah, I botched it with a French girl, but she was into for some freak stuff. So I reached over and I tried to grab. I did. I caught her strap in midair, and it kept things from coming out because she was also one of the girls that was, like I said, she had matured more than. So I just grabbed that strap and we danced the rest of the song, and she wasn't even like helping holding. I was like, my hands, I'd like to say I was in good shape, but my hand was getting tired you try to hold a little tiny strap like that with your fingers for, 4 minutes, a natural duration of a song. And I was like, wow.
She didn't even say like, what are you doing?
I think she knew what I was doing, but she was like, I don't care. Yeah. And I was just like
maybe she was trying to get you in an awkward situation.
I don't know. I'd like to. I mean,
kind of goes along with the French girl thing.
Maybe she rigged it so it did that on purpose.
Yeah, you ever think
that
about
that? That was her move.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. If you're out there,
if anybody's gonna save me, Pierce will.
I just tried to keep it together, and then we finished. Remember that 7th or 8th grade maneuver where you pretty much just have your hands kind of behind her back together, and you guys are swaying. And then she's got her hands up high around your shoulders, and you're just swaying back and forth. It's not really, I don't know if you call it dancing. You're basically standing together,
going side to
looking
side,
at each other. Sometimes you look at each other. Sometimes, what do you look at? And that's the other thing you first learn. Where do I look when I'm dancing with a girl? Do I look at her eyes? Do I look at her shoulders? Do I look at the strap I'm holding so that nothing goes sideways? Where is she looking? What's happening? And all that stuff, nobody tells you. You got to figure that out. It's like Thunderdome, man. You just, 2 men go in, one come out, and you're hoping by the time this is over, you haven't embarrassed your whole lineage.
You were dancing with a man.
Yeah.
She was a pretty girl, man.
They're always pretty in Pierce's stories.
Well, I'm sorry.
I just
like pretty girls. And I just remember holding onto that thing for dear life. And I've told people stories, and they're like, you stupid idiot. And I'm like, dude, but I'm not going to let the strap. I don't know what that would have been like for her afterwards, but I don't know. I won't tell you anything more about her because I don't want to embarrass her.
Yeah. See, the thing with music, though, is that's the thing for me. You can listen to a song and instantly it transports you back to a memory.
Yeah.
That's what's cool about music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, whether it's like your time in the military, maybe you were listening to a song before something and you listen to that song now and you're like, shit, I'm right back there. I can think about that whole thing.
Down.
Or on the flip, a song,
exactly.
a song you haven't listened to in a long time.
Right. And you're just like, your mind does automatically remembering that shit.
Linkin Park.
And Linkin Park or road trips. That's a big one for me, listening to songs on road trips. If I listen to a song now, I can think of my wife and I went to Ireland, I don't know, like probably 3 or 4 years ago. We rented a car, drove through the entire country and stuff and listened to music. So when I hear certain songs on the radio, they played that shit like all the time. It
makes you feel how you felt then.
Yeah, exactly. And it makes you just think about that, And so like that's the cool thing about music to me is it evokes such like emotion instantly, That's just what's so cool about it. For you guys, what do you look for? Do you guys pay attention to lyrics? Do you guys put value on lyrics or beat? Or for me, it's a little bit of both.
It's a little bit lyrics, but not as I've gotten older. Yeah, I probably do a little bit more. But
like there are songs,
normally no, because I'm more listening to instruments and what they're doing and how they're using them.
Right.
But that's just like a personal thing because like I grew up trying to pick out any guitar riff that I could
that you could try to play
that I would play, or that I could play too,
right?
Especially when they're not singing portions, and you're just kind of like running. Like I would sit there and like do my thing,
right?
And that's just kind of how I grew up, like listening to music and like to any genre.
See, I think you're right though. As you get older, you get a lot more introspective and thoughtful about everything, And so when I brought up Simple Man, those lyrics are amazing.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And like that's a big reason why I love that song so much,
There's been songs where I've never paid attention. I just love the music portion. And then I kind of do listen to the lyrics and it's like it could make it or break it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like you could like it more or you're just not going to like it as much.
So I used to be like that with videos. If you'd watch a video, you like the song, even the lyrics, and then you watch the video and you're like, oh man, that's not good. That video doesn't go with that.
I feel like that's more of a man thing, not listening to the lyrics like that, because almost every woman.
Well, because women a lot, like I think a lot more women,
because it's more of an emotional thing, right?
They are into. If you look at the new country stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like if you, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
I do like some country,
but I think a lot more of the new country stuff, like the Morgan Wallen and like those kind of guys, that's women. Women love that. You know what I mean? And
it's the same
I think
thing
a lot of that is like the lyrics and like what they're talking about.
It's the same as the power ballads from the 80s, man.
Right.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
That's like they're gearing it towards that.
Yeah. And I think women listen to a lot more of the lyrics on that stuff, like Taylor Swift.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you think women are listening to Taylor Swift because they necessarily like the sound of that song? Maybe, but I think a lot of it is what the lyrics are, So I think you're right. I think men are more just about, and especially like, it comes back to testosterone stuff. Like when I'm at the gym, what do you like listening to? I like listening to hard rock and hip hop. Yeah, that's what I listen to at the gym.
Yes, exactly.
Period.
To a T.
I don't want to listen to 80s new wave. I don't want to listen to any soft shit because I want to get a good workout in and I want to get pumped. You know what I mean? And so that's why. So I think that's
You don't want to be soft. You want to be hard.
It's more of a rhythm thing too when you're working out. Everything's goes down to count and all that stuff when you're working out. That's for me anyway.
And I hate listening to myself breathe. If I'm doing cardio and I'm like struggling a little bit and breathing, I hate listening to that shit, so I have to drown it out with music.
Yeah. Well, the music thing, and I learned this from the Army, is a rhythm thing, man. If you're singing or you have a song going,
cadence or something,
you like zone out of the hurt and all that stuff. You know what I mean? The suck of it all.
Yeah.
You're gone.
You just kind of get in a trance a little bit. Yeah.
Plus, there's a couple of songs that when you hear that, you can do a few more sets. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like it'll get you pumped up.
You listen to some music that hypes you up and gets you going. You're like,
exactly. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Are you guys big into like live concerts?
I know you are. I used to like. There were certain bands I used to really like. But dude, I have a hard time being in a congested area with a bunch of people when I know there's going to be some goofballs doing stuff that that's a deterrent for me.
Yeah.
That's kind of hard.
Outcome is vindictive emotion.
It's turning the macho man.
Always been for me. I've never been a concert guy.
Yeah.
I haven't attended one. And I guess part of me is I like the sound of, the studio quality sound. I want it to sound like what it would sound like on the radio. Yeah. I get going to some of these smaller venues where they have like a house band or something like that. Yeah. To me, it sounds cool. But also probably some of the bands, like you just said, Metallica was here recently. And I love Metallica as well, but I'm thinking of some of the people that might go there. And, especially back in our days, getting into a mosh pit. And that was cool back when I was like a 19, 21 year
old. Or just dealing with drunk idiots and like that kind of stuff. That's why, that's a big reason why I don't like going to football games anymore.
Yep.
Like, I'd rather watch it on TV. Yep. I got my own stuff there. I got a beer if I want to. I don't got to worry about driving home. I got all that stuff there at the house. And then inevitably, every time I've gone to a football game, you got to deal with some knucklehead. You know, there's
Honestly,
always some knucklehead around that wants to be a drunk idiot.
That's
you know?
why I don't. That's why I steer clear of all that stuff, because I have some stupid hero complex where if someone's being a drunk idiot and being an asshole to someone else,
then you want to intervene.
Yeah, I want to go destroy. It's in the middle of a then fight. It just causes more of a headache. And,
right,
and
exactly. Yeah,
no, I'm gonna end up getting in trouble for trying to do the right thing.
Right.
Quote,
yeah, exactly.
You know,
so just don't even put yourself in that situation.
Yeah, so I'm not even gonna go. I like going to like some of these outdoor festivals they have around here.
Yeah,
that's cool because it's mellow. Everyone's chill.
And when I was a kid, like I said, my favorite band growing up during that time frame was the Deftones. I was just a huge fan. I got to see the Deftones in like a venue with less than 500 people at like some bar that converts to a concert venue at night. That was awesome. I love seeing bands like that.
Yeah.
I'm not as big of a fan. Oh, you're amongst 50,000 people. You know what I mean?
That
like
sucks.
that sucks.
Yeah.
You know, I'm right there by the stage. I can it's just more intimate. Yep. It's just
the last concert that I went to. I remember the first one I went to and the last one. The last one I went to was Guns N' Roses, and they made it sound like they weren't going to do it again, and then they did.
I'm going to the concert actually.
The one they got coming up. Didn't see the invite on that. That's awkward.
Oh, I'm going with my daughter. So.
Oh, yeah, well, still awkward. But when I saw you going to go see Axl?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
With Morgan.
Well, you know, I remember when I saw Axl, like, okay, so he doesn't get out and say or engage with the crowd at all. Okay, he just gets out and starts singing and goes back, and it's all business. So a little bit disappointing, but the performance he puts on is still good. Now his voice is struggling, but the guy ran up and down all over the stage like he used to, and that was cool to see. My very first concert, it wasn't a rock one. Get this, it had MC Hammer, TLC, Jodeci, Boys to Men. Yeah, it was all four of those. I was way underdressed, man. There was a lot of people in purple and yellow suits.
Did you cry during Boys and Men?
No. I did remember.
End of the road?
I remember being very disappointed with Jodeci when they got out and started humping the floor on the stage, and I was like, come on, guys. I tell people I like you. What are you doing? But they had a good groove, man. When Jodeci first came out.
They were just excited because I just met this French girl.
Yeah, so
all the French girls hang out.
They were ever able to look past the hairy armpits.
It gets disappointing, man, when sometimes when you go watch, it's like meeting your hero, you know, like sometimes when you see.
Yeah, there's also that too, which is.
For sure. And when you learn a little bit too much about like, I can't remember how, you know, you get like stuff in your feed and you're like, I wonder what I might have looked at for 2 seconds. And I was getting Dua Lipa stuff. I don't know, every week or something, she would have like 5 or 10 pictures of her in slightly different angles on the beach or something. Just a lot of like, look at me and look at all these different pictures of me in this outfit. It was like, man, you're never going to see Sammy Hagar do that, you know? And those guys, that's somebody I can proudly like. There was a few Dua Lipa songs that I kind of kept to myself, except that I'm pretty free-spirited and I share stuff, so I'm sure I revealed this to you guys and I probably posted it. But there's some of those and you're like, oh, man, you're goofy. Like, I can't get behind you anymore. You've gone too far into the goofy zone, you know?
Well, I feel like the less talented a musician is, whatever. No offense to
the more gimmicky they get.
The more gimmicky and look at me they get. Yeah. Like Metallica doesn't have to do that shit. Right. You know what I mean? Like they just are kick-ass musicians and that's it. Dude, you know?
Yeah.
Right. Like they're
like
just
down to a science.
Yeah, it's like down to a science. They're amazing.
And you can tell they love it. They still love playing their music.
Exactly. And
that's what makes it cool.
And all they have to rely on is how freaking talented they are. Yeah. That's why people come out. They don't come out for, oh, look at me in the photo shoot and I'm a celebrity and all that crap, you know? So the more talent, like I'm a big Tool fan, like Maynard's amazing, you know what I mean? And Maynard, he shies away from the spotlight. He doesn't even want that shit, you know? And that's what I'm saying is like, I think what you're referencing with modern music is everybody's a narcissist now. Everybody's a celebrity now, you know? And as opposed to, I'm just a kick-ass musician. Either you like it or you don't. If you like it, cool. That's what...
You know who I would have liked to have seen live? Phil Collins, man. I think he made an announcement that he won't be doing any more live tours. And the first time I heard anything off of that album, that was like... And I mean, it was like hit after... It was like Huey Lewis.
He was supposedly an asshole back in the day.
Really?
Yeah.
You know what's funny is like, that's how different Pierce and my music is. I just referenced Maynard from Tool and he's talking about Phil Collins.
And that was good, cool. I'm sorry to hear. See, that's what I'm talking about. It stinks when you hear stuff like that because I think
it was just the diva coming out back in his heyday, but it may have just been one or two things.
He seems like a good-hearted guy. There's
and everybody has their bad days. Like you probably don't want to come up to me and talk to me on my bad day either.
Yeah, after you get snipped.
Could you imagine back in the day doing those tours that they did? Like,
oh yeah.
At what point? When you're 6 months into it, are you just burnt out and you're just like, fuck off, man? And then they're like, oh, he's an asshole.
Yeah. It's like, well, yeah. Or who knows? Maybe like
Phil Collins is loved by
by every. I mean, he's an amazing musician, and Peter Gabriel and all those guys from Genesis back in the day. Like I said, I mean, I can go from Tool to like Genesis, you know what I mean, or like Mike and the Mechanics or whatever.
I'll show you my music list. It's ridiculously all over the place.
And that's why I'm like, I am not about like pigeonholing myself into like one genre because there's just so much good music out there, So I forgot what I was going to say. Go ahead.
We're going pretty good into an hour, so it's probably time for the what would you do scenario, which we're going to do again like we did in the last episode. And this is where we pick a name out of a hat. You present your hypothetical scenario to the person's name that you've picked, and we listen to see how they would handle it, and then we'll chime in as needed to try to help. But who wants to go first?
I went first last time.
Yeah, you went first. I can go first because I do have my hypothetical scenario.
Oh, you have something in the chamber here.
Yeah. If we want to take a commercial break and you can think about yours. But I will go ahead.
Oh, I got a hypothetical actually.
Okay. Let's just mix it up so I don't see who I'm grabbing here. Oh, okay, 11. Did I get 11 last time? I don't remember who it was.
No.
Okay.
I think,
I got Red.
Red got 11 last time.
Okay, so he's gonna like this one, I think. This is also good because this happened to me. It's nice when it's something that's actually happened to you too, because hopefully the listening audience will gauge. Like you think about, it's kind of crisis rehearsal, right? You kind of identify a crisis and you think about how you'd handle it before you get into the crisis so you're better prepared. So this might prepare somebody. So this was back a long time ago. I did get permission from my beauty to make sure it was okay to share this. Unfortunately, because it'll be embarrassing for me, it involves the opposite sex and a romantic interlude that didn't go that smooth. So I'm going to give you the cliff notes and see how you'd handle it. So I had broken up with somebody, been with them for a little while, and I was in the gym. This girl that I had seen before, but we had never talked or anything in a small gym, she says, just out of nowhere, are you doing okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. And I guess she could see that I was maybe a little down or whatever, which I think I usually mask my feelings. I'm working on trying to mask my emotions because I found that if I do that, I'm becoming more impervious and stronger. So at this time early in my life, I guess I wasn't as good at it, but that's anyway what I'm trying to do. So appreciate you guys sticking with me on the story here.
Still here.
So, so I went ahead and I said, yeah, I'm doing fine. She's like, I don't know if you're doing fine. And I was like, who is this girl talking to me like she's the boss of me, right? And because she was very assertive, very kind of aggressive.
And you had already known her from before, right? You said?
I just maybe had seen her in the gym before.
Oh, so she was kind of like a stranger.
Yeah, she was a stranger. I didn't know her.
Okay.
And she was like, it just happened to be that she wasn't my type. So she was very pretty, but she wasn't like my type, and you guys kind of know what my type might be. So she said, hey, I can tell you're not doing well. What's going on? So I told her, I said, well, I broke up with somebody. I was dating them for a while. And she's like, here's what we're going to do. I was like, what is this?
I like where this is going.
We've already learned Red is a hoe. Okay. I'm sorry to say.
Wow.
So if you're a hoe, this is going to be a very easy scenario for you, Red.
All right.
Or 11, sorry. All right. Host Science has told us that we should try to stick to an hour, and we apologize for the interruption. I hate to interrupt myself speaking and telling such a great story, humble brag, but we will pick up here where we left off next week. We'll be back with the conclusion to this. We're going to hear how 11 is going to handle this scenario that I have to finish describing. Unfortunately, it does not put me in a good light. And if you've gotten this far in the podcast, you probably have a good idea of what kind of mistakes I'm going to make along the way. In addition, 11 Red and Beige will also be presenting their hypothetical scenarios You can find us on our social media for updates in between our shows. Thanks for your support. Give us a follow if you like it, some feedback. Stay cool and be kind.